How exactly, how would that moment have played out if the salt worked?
Well, you know what's interesting is there was often more to that bit on the day,
Yeah.
and I think that they tuned it back a little bit because we went pretty far with it, where he was like pushing salt on her, and there we get like a full salt ring around him,
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
I'm Russ Milheim from The Direct. Thank you all for being here and talking about school spirits.
Yes.
Thank you for having
Yes.
us.
Of course, means a lot that you guys were able to come together and talk about these episodes.
You got the whole Rat Pack here.
I
You
know.
got the whole living.
You might have just answered my first question. Between all you guys, what is the official nickname for Team Living?
I like Ghostbusters.
Yeah, we used that reference a lot while we were doing press. Ghostbusters,
I like
feel like
I like the Scooby Gang,
I like the Scooby.
History Incorporated.
Fantastic Four.
Oh,
Either one.
Fantastic.
Might be trademarked, but possibly. Now, I have seen episodes 5 and 6, and they're a doozy. And the first scene that I have to talk about because it was so fun to watch, and I can only imagine it was a blast to film, was just the ghost debrief in the gym. The just blanket question first and foremost, how was that? How did that go down?
the second all of us landed on our marks, I think the crew erupted because it was the final moment where all of us could be in a scene together. Wasn't that like that? They
Yeah.
were all like, "Whoa, this is huge."
Reading that and just like so excited to film that. It was very difficult because when they were speaking, we couldn't look at them and they would say jokes or like they would speak and I would want to look at them and I couldn't. That was probably the most tough part of filming that, but it was my favorite scene to film.
Yeah. And also it made me a little jelly because I feel like they always get the fun jokes. You know what I mean? Like they're always joking. And that whole scene, it's like us being serious and then kind of joking around. It was fun.
Yeah, that's so cool to see how people work in context and in relation to each other. Like Spence, I didn't even know that moment where you were staring at Wally's jock and he goes, eyes up here. Was that in the script or was that improv?
Oh,
No, we found that.
those improv.
How
Yeah.
often did you guys like? Because you obviously you can't look at them just because it wouldn't make sense. How often did your eye lines get to the wrong place and they were like, nah, reset, try again?
Well, I think that was part of the fun, at least in that scene, is like, what Xavier has that moment where he's just staring at Wally's crotch, and like I think there's room for bits as far as like how we choose to, because that's a terrifying situation too if you think about it. We're entering a room and there's ghosts in there, and and for them it's just a buoyant light conversation, but for us there's a lot of like trepidation entering that situation.
Yeah. And I think Claire kind of said it too, where she's like, this is like so creepy. Or that was one of your lines, right? Rainbow?
Yeah.
And we were like, imagine this was real life and we actually did that. I don't think I would have been able to stay there that whole time talking to a bunch of ghosts.
Yeah, that would definitely be quite the experience. Yeah, it's previously been said that you guys got to work with like Sarah and Nick, two people you don't get to work with very often, but they seem to be some real jokesters on set. Did you guys did you get to experience that in the moment?
We
Oh yeah.
experience that all the time, even offset. Like they're just always joking around. And they have really good banter, them too. They should make a show. There should be a spin-off for Sarah and Nick.
And it was cool watching Oliver Goldstick kind of come in and be like, hey, try this line this time, and there was a lot of alts going on, and we kind of got to have a front row viewing of different variations of the scene that Oliver was kind of throwing at them on the day.
Part of me hopes that you guys get more scenes with all of them, but that could also mean very terrible things for all of you. So maybe not. Now, a lead-up question to kind of, there's a lot of other things that happen in that episode, but before I address it, all of you guys react different under pressure, character-wise. Who do you think is the worst, and who do you think is the best?
Character-wise?
Yeah, character-wise. I mean, you can also go
Hey,
yourself.
you were not about to say real life.
Yeah.
I think Simon or Claire are the best under pressure.
Yeah.
They're both really the brains and the brawn of the equation. Nicole and Xavier are kind of just we're trying.
They could not keep a secret.
Spencer, I was definitely going to point to Xavier, as I think he's the worst. I think he cracks so easily.
Yeah, you know,
I mean,
the gravity of the situation really got to him, and he just wouldn't let this salt thing go.
Yeah, that's how I was gonna go in. Yeah, into that big dinner, very very intense kind of Janet-Maddie moment. Can you each go through kind of how each one of your characters entered this dinner and how they approached the situation on their own, even if it was at odds with what they thought the group wanted?
I'll start. I know that Simon, he had that recording system right in his pocket, and he thought he just had the best plan. Him and Claire were like, you know what? We're gonna fake this science experiment on the roof, and we're just gonna bait her. And the second it didn't work, there was no other plan we had. Like that was the only thing we brought up. So we came in with a lot of confidence, and we just flatlined bad, like a real bad Super Bowl, like 46-0. It was just wasn't looking good. That's how Simon felt.
I think Claire is like she's really good under pressure for sure. She knows she's had a lot of pressure put on her, so she's really good in those situations. But I feel like Claire is definitely the most removed from Maddie out of all the group, and so I think seeing her again, she knows that it's Janet in her head, and so she doesn't have this like emotional connection that the rest of the gang have with what Maddie looks like.
I think with Nicole, she went into this dinner kind of like what she thought of an idea kind of outside of the box. And even though the rest of the gang wasn't about it, she's like, well, I'm gonna do it anyway. And it was one of the things obviously we see that she blurts out, and it had an impact. It had more of an impact than some of the other things that they tried. But it was definitely very much like, well, even though they're not gonna listen to me, let me try this anyway.
I think Xavier's really torn. He has a line when they're entering the home where he says, I'm about to have dinner with my ex-girlfriend and the girl who ran me over, and then they're the same person. And I think that there's a lot of little moments. If you look in the background, he's like smelling her, and he didn't get that resolution with his relationship that he wanted. And he wants that, and she's there, and he can finally say things that maybe atone for some of his wrongdoing. But at the same time, he's incredibly haunted by what happened to him at the end of the first episode. And he's clearly been on some deep Reddit threads. You know, the vampire has the wooden stake to the heart, the werewolf has the silver bullet, and ghosts have salt. And so he's just really preoccupied with, with quashing this evil entity while at the same time redeeming himself. So there's a lot going on, and it's very unfocused and chaotic for Xavier.
No, and let alone the picture that you end up seeing at the end of the dinner. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Poor Xavier. Roller coaster.
How exactly, how would that moment have played out if the salt worked?
Well, what's interesting is there was more to that bit on the day.
Yeah.
And I think that they tuned it back a little bit because we went pretty far with it, where he was like pushing salt on her, and we get like a full salt ring around him. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
I appreciated the edits of like our reaction. Like me, I don't know if they looked at Claire's, but they looked at me and Simon. I was like, oh my God, it cracked me up.
Dude,
The way we were looking
I
at
think
you with the salt.
there was one take where Spencer he went like this. This is the table, right? He went, oh shoot. And then just dumped it at her face. And then
I
made
wish
it
I
like,
would have kept it. That was funny.
That would have been really funny. How much? So like obviously the group goes in there knowing the situation with Janet and Maddie, but Maddie's mom does not. How careful and like how much were they navigating like trying to keep that truth from her mom? And were they really worried about it slipping, or were they like, if it slips, they'll try to explain it?
no, I don't think they wanna yeah, I don't think they wanted to bust her cover at all. I notice how they don't even push when she says that she wants to go homeschooling. And we're like, Oh, okay, all right. We don't really want to intervene with that. You know what would have been a cool acting choice to play now that you ask a question like that is if any of us had sympathy for Sandra throughout the whole dinner and thinking, wow, there's a different girl in her daughter's body and she has no idea. Poor woman. But I truly didn't play that. I truly played, okay, let's get her to the school. But that would have been interesting to play a moment, where you kind of feel for Sandra. Um, damn it.
I feel like I was a little bit thinking of that while I was playing in the dinner scene. Also just kind of pissed off that someone's in my friend's body in general, like that she did this in general. But just also too, maybe because I've had other scenes in season one. I don't know if you remember when after the school dance when I went to her house and I saw her break down. I don't know if you guys remember that part. Just and I think the way Nicole tries to treat her and like giving her hugs and trying to make her feel better, she's a little protective of her. That and I was trying to play that angle a little bit in the dinner scene. Like that's that frustration, like, oh, I hate that they're doing this to her, you know?
Now, Christian, you had a one-on-one with Maddie, and you didn't quite get to her. So my question is, why do you think it didn't stick? Why did that not work out? And then for everyone else, if your characters had that same chance at a one-on-one to try to convince her, what you guys needed, how would you have approached it?
You know, if you look at Simon's just energy levels, he's always like this. He's just, and when you're on the receiving end of that, you don't really want to give that person anything. So when I'm talking to Janet and she's holding a knife and obviously implying that, hey, don't come any closer or I'm gonna go for your throat, he just talks to her gently. And that's a side of Simon that is more tactician like. I don't know. But
It's tactful, isn't it?
it's tactful. He doesn't want to raise his voice. He doesn't want to spook her. It's kind of like talking to a child that has like the nuke button. It's like, hold on, sweetheart, don't go anywhere. Daddy's home, you know.
And then you guys,
Um,
how would your characters handle that moment on their own if that was them in that situation?
well, I think that there's a beat in the sixth episode that shows sort of how Xavier would react given the opportunity to speak with Maddie. But I think that, to reiterate, in that dinner, he's just very overwhelmed with the fact that he hasn't had the opportunity to make his peace with how he wronged Maddie. So it's almost difficult for him to reconcile that this is Janet. It looks like Maddie. It smells like Maddie. You know what I mean? It sounds like Maddie. It's like he's just got this. He's preoccupied with, I think, his own guilt, and it throws him off the scent of the mission entirely.
In episode 3, when Claire believes that it is still Maddie, she is incredibly sorry and she feels like similar to Xavier, she needs to right her wrongs with her. So I think she's a lot more sympathetic. But then when she realizes that it is Janet, I think she's pissed. Like Claire is pissed that this random person has taken her ex-best friend's life, and I don't think she would be very kind to Janet if she had a one-on-one with her.
I think in a Nicole fashion where she's always doing not that she was doing sneaky things in season one, but she did a lot of snowball effect things where it just got bigger and bigger, like the blackmail, the money, all the crazy things. I feel like I think she would use the guilt tactic, like, she has a mom, she's a single mom, she lost her dad, like she needs to live her life. Like you died in a fire, but she didn't actually die. You literally stole her body. You know what I mean? Just like a guilt trip tactic.